Welcome to Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. I'm your host, Lashonda Counsel Rogers. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. You can find this show on my website, www.thecounselfirm.com, and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Now, please join me in Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. Today, we have Jamala McFadden here with us, and she is the co-founder of not Employment Law Solution, the Employment Law Solution. And so welcome to our show, Jamala.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Oh, of course, of course. I've been wanting you to be on the show for a long time because I know not only do you have an interesting personal story, you have a wealth of information for some of our small business owners and maybe not so small business owners out there regarding employment law. So let's just jump right in. You are, like I said, the co-founder of the Employment Law Solution. Tell us a little bit about that. What made you decide, you know what, it's time for me to jump out here and do it on my own with my own firm? So inspire us. Let us know how that happened.
Oh, absolutely. So I've been practicing law for about 22 years now. Time has really flown. I
Yeah.
spent my first 10 years of practice at a large law firm in Atlanta and learned a lot, got some great training, developed some great relationships, was well supported in that practice. But as the economy started to change for my practice area, employment law, I saw employment law dying out at large firms, not just the firm I was with, but in other firms as well. And I knew that it was just a matter of time where the math didn't math, the money didn't make sense from a business perspective of the firm. And I didn't want anybody to come knocking on my door to say, it's time to go. Your services are no longer needed, essentially. And so I just started to really reflect and try to figure out, okay, what is it that I should do? There were certain things I knew I didn't want to do. And I was senior enough in my career that I knew I didn't want to be in an entry level position. I didn't want to be a cog in the wheel. And so really, honestly, I just started a deep prayer journey. Like, what is it, God, whatever it is, even if I have to go kicking and screaming, I
Yeah.
commit to do whatever it is you'd have me to do. And I was probably the most surprised among us when God said, start your own firm. I'm like, what? Oh, no, no way. I can't, no, that was not on my list.
Yeah.
So it was because I never wanted to be responsible for my food. I didn't want to have to chase my own food. I wasn't sure how that was going to turn out, how I would sustain myself. And to me, that was a luxury. It was a luxury to be able to be an entrepreneur, have your own business, and maybe sometimes have a dollar, maybe sometimes only have 15 cents. And so once I made that commitment to God, though, and I said, you're going to have to neon lights, red carpet, like let me know
Yeah.
that this is it. And he did. He really did. Like things that I could not have imagined for myself. Like I had clients come to me to say, if you ever think about your own firm, take me with you. I'm like,
Mm.
well, okay. And so I
Yeah.
had clients check. I had a couple of friends who were more like colleagues. I went to them because we're very type A. If we're gonna do this thing, we
Yeah.
have to like have our ducks lined up, know what to expect. And so I started talking to other lawyers who had gone out on their own. And eventually, a couple of them said, well, what do you think about having law partners? Well, I don't think anything. I never thought about any of this. And so
Yeah.
I had law partners. My son found a commercial office space for us. I wasn't looking. What I was looking for is, all right, I'm going to have to tighten my belt. I'm leaving this big firm and this big paycheck. Let me get a mortgage while I still can. And he
Yeah.
ended up finding a place that it's a townhouse with commercial office space on the ground level. And it was a foreclosed property, so it wasn't advertised very well. We went to look at the property and we see all this office space. So when I say God just lined it up so perfectly in ways that I could not have imagined or dreamed of, that's what happened. And that's my story.
Wow. That is such an inspirational story. And I totally understand having to have faith and just trust, because my background is pretty similar. I had no thoughts of starting my own firm. I was at a real estate firm and I was very comfortable. Had a great more money than I'd ever had in my life, but I was miserable.
Mm.
Absolutely, absolutely miserable. And but I was not strong enough to say, hmm, how long will I be in misery?
Yeah.
I I was just there and just I was so busy that my paycheck would just pile up because I didn't even have time to even spend it. I know that sounds crazy, other than like necessities or bills that were coming out automatically,
Hmm.
just so chained to a desk, miserable. And I remember the day that one of the partners in HR, they're like, hey, we want to talk to you for a second. And I was like, oh, okay. I had my notebook, I was ready.
Hmm.
And they were like, well, the market is turning for the real estate. Yeah, we're gonna have to let you go. And I'm like, what? What? And I remember crying and just like, my life is over. What am I gonna do? And I remember that this was a Friday, that Sunday, being at church, and before the sermon even started, I was crying. People were looking at me like, well, wait a
Hmm.
minute, what's going on with this lady? The pastor hadn't even said anything. And I had a friend who convinced me to take a personal injury case, and I was like, "Why? That I'm not an ambulance chaser. I'm not
Hmm.
going to do that." But I did, and then one turned into two, to three,
Uh-huh.
to four, to five, to five. No business plan, but I was just like, "Okay, I like to eat every day, so I'm gonna have to get up and do something and get this stuff done." But I had to have faith that I was going to be able to get it done. And there were
Yes.
days where I was like, no, this is not for me, but I kept with it. And so I totally get your story, your story.
Yeah.
So
Let me
you
add
talk,
this too, because you raised a good point. Sometimes I was having a conversation on the way to my office this morning about someone who needs help negotiating a severance, but same thing, had lived in sort of misery, but was just in misery. Sometimes I try to encourage our severance clients who are executives, been there, committed to the company. But when the company decides that they no longer need your services, that's just it. But it is,
yeah,
I try to encourage folks to look at it as a good thing. Sometimes God needs to just kick us in the butt because we wouldn't do it
yes.
ourselves. And that it doesn't feel comfortable, but it's such a good thing that is waiting for us once we get over that piece. So it's an exciting time,
Oh,
really.
yeah. Oh, yeah. I've gotten to the point where that people say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. If I'm not uncomfortable, I feel like I'm not challenging myself at all. Cause I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just resting and coasting. Obviously, I'm not even thinking about taking self care out of it, but just challenges. I invite them now, whereas
Hmm.
before I would run away from them. I would
Yeah,
just be like,
yeah,
no, I don't want to rock the boat. I just kind of want to do whatever. But let's talk about like, who is your ideal client and how can they benefit from your services?
sure.
Obviously, you work with the business owner, not the employee. Am I correct?
So, for the most part, we've
Okay.
got two pieces of our practice. The lion's share of our practice, probably 90% of our practice, focuses on helping employers, the businesses, and including government employers. And we help employers that range in size from the Fortune 100s to employers that have only 10 employees. And so it really spans the gamut. And within that, we do litigation, advice, and counsel, lots of advice and counsel investigations. We also do representation and litigation. We try jury trials. So it really just spans the gamut. So, and the other part of our practice is something I just alluded to. We help executives in transition. So
Okay.
that work we do for individuals. Largely, it is severance negotiations. An executive will come and say, "I've just been laid off of my job for 10 years. They gave me this severance package. Is it a good deal or not? Help me negotiate it." And so I head up that practice for the firm, and it actually is the thing that I like doing most because a lot of our executives like their identities are sometimes wrapped up into what they do and their work. And it is
Sure.
really a hard transition to have to let that go and do something else. And so I am able to successfully help them negotiate an exit that leads them to opening a business or just their next opportunity, but gives them a cushion to be able to do that and gives them some confidence and empowers them with some information and just a good experience that they need to make that transition smoothly.
Yeah, that is so important because you think that someone at a certain level would not have any issue with transition.
Mhm.
We look on the outside and we think, oh, this person has it together, but it's not about not having it together, but life can be scary. Change can be
Mhm.
scary. And for any executive who's watching now, Jamala helps me ease this. And it's tough for people, I think, who are in a position of power or per se to admit, I need help.
Yeah.
I need help with this. I may not be the jack of all trades. And as something as far as a severance package or making sure you make the next move in your career, it's important. So, yeah, we shouldn't be
Yeah.
shy about getting the help that we need to make the next
Absolutely.
step.
It's important. I mean, and it is the business thing to do. Like so
Hmm.
many of these executives, like it makes business sense to hire an expert to negotiate it for you. The other important thing is the executive, you're too close to it. It's your
Right.
own severance. Maybe you could help somebody else do it, but it's your own situation and you're just too close to it. We learn that time and time again. And there's a lot of self and emotions wrapped up into what really should just be a business deal.
Yeah, true, true, true. And one thing that I've noticed in watching you and looking at your practice and how your practice has grown, it seems like from day one, you have been very authentic to yourself, authentic in the way you look, authentic in what you believe in. And I know that sometimes that may be a little challenging to say, okay, this is where I am, even from hair to dress to
Hmm.
this, that, and the other. How do you keep a good balance of you personally based on versus what people expect of you, what they expect a high level lawyer like yourself to look like or to behave or to do? How do you just say, hey, this is me?
Hmm. That's a good question, Lashonda. It really is. And the older I get, the easier it is because
Hmm.
I'm just like, I don't care. I've proven myself. I've proven that I'm an excellent lawyer. And so it's just easier for me to just deal with. Um, on the other hand, though, I understand you got to look the part to a
Right,
certain extent. And I wouldn't want anything about my appearance to interfere with the representation that I'm giving to my client. So when I go to court, for example, I know a lot of younger lawyers have these conversations. I'm dressing very corporate court like because I need you to focus on my client's case and not me, not anything
correct.
about my hair, my clothes, my nails, nothing like that. So I'm very strict when it comes to that for myself and the members of our team that we are representing not ourselves but our clients.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I do think a lot of younger lawyers, they don't understand that of course, you are an individual, but you are representing someone else when you're in the courtroom or when you're speaking on behalf of your client. And you cannot let your individuality, sorry, tongue tied here, overshadow what your
Right.
purpose is and what you're trying to do. There's a time and place for that. And it may
Absolutely.
not be right then. Like those nails may be nice. Those eyelashes, although they're long, they may be nice, but there is a time and place for
Yes.
that. And so I'm glad you did. You made that good point because it's hard. It's hard nowadays. People take a lot of offense to what is considered um, positive feedback or positive opinions coming from a place of love and
Right.
admiration. So I like that. I like that. So tell me, as you work with business owners, a lot of times, including myself, I feel like I know a whole bunch about a whole lot. And with dealing with employees, I have to take a step back to make sure I'm not crossing those lines that I shouldn't. So what are some of the common misconceptions that small business owners have when they deal with their employees? And I'm sure there's plenty, but maybe give us
Mhm.
one or two.
Well, I would say the thing that employers come to me most for, and the things that small businesses get wrong the most when it comes to a team is, excuse me, from a legal perspective, it is misclassification of workers, hands down. And they come because they get it wrong, but also it's very expensive. When they come to me, usually a problem has been found out, and we have to try to work to resolve it. And what that means is a lot of us small business owners, when we first start out, we don't want to take on the expense of having employees. It's like, okay, let me just get a contractor.
Hmm.
Contractors are easier to deal with. It's easier to pay folks as a contract. You don't have to go through the rigmarole of a payroll service provider and all of that. The problem, though, is the law determines when somebody is an actual employee or an independent contractor or a contractor, right? And so the law will say, the Department of Labor and IRS in particular, will say, based on the job that the person is doing, so an administrative assistant, for example, or in a restaurant, a server, it comes up a lot in the restaurant and retail industries, but a server, that person should be an employee and that person is not a contractor. And so usually it comes up when the person who, and sometimes the contractor wants to be paid as a contractor or they want to be paid under the
Oh
table. They
yeah.
will say, yeah, don't put me on your payroll because it's less expensive for them too to be paid as a contractor. And then you've got child support and all these other issues that people
Sure.
don't want to go through those processes. So it's all fine and good on the front end until it's not, right? And so that same person who said, pay me this way, please, they will go to the Department of Labor to file an unemployment claim. Only employees get unemployment benefits, but the Department of Labor will take a look to say, should this person have been a contractor or are they really an employee? And the Department of Labor will make that call. And if you've got one, the Department of Labor will go and look at the rest of your team too to determine whether or not they should be employees or contractors. And so that is a big problem because employers just don't know the law in that regard. And when you're
Mhm.
first starting out, you're trying to save money, trying to spend money on the things that will make you money. And so it's hard.
So if you misclassify a person, how do you correct? Do you just say, okay, I'm stopping this right now? Or do you have to go retroactively and do something to correct it?
Sure, good question. And I just did a whole presentation on this yesterday. And
Oh,
so,
well, it's
and I'm
fresh in
happy.
your mind. Great.
Yes, yes, and it comes up so much. And so I'm used to talking about it. There is that gets tricky because as soon as you start doing something different, people will wonder, well, were you doing it wrong this whole
Hmm.
time? Do I am I deserving of something? They'll go to a lawyer to say something is not quite right about this. So what we typically recommend, one, you've got to change it. It's less expensive to change it than it is to get caught doing it
Yes.
wrong and have the IRS in your business or have the Department of Labor in your business. What we usually recommend is change it come January 1st. New year, new policies. You're trying to get your systems and practices in order. We're putting everybody on a W 2. So roll it out with the new year is one approach. And sometimes it has to do with messaging. We're overhauling our business, we're restructuring our business. So these folks will be on a W 2 going forward. You will get some pushback. Business owners will get some pushback. So, like I said, a lot of people like to be paid as a contractor, but you
Right.
really have to look at it as protecting your business.
Yeah.
Because if it hits the fan, if it's found out, like it will cost you thousands upon thousands of dollars to correct it. And it's not worth it for some individual wanting to get paid this a particular way.
Ooh, absolutely, absolutely. Because I know it's difficult. It's difficult because yeah, like, oh yeah, contractor, you don't have to worry about benefits. You don't have to you do what you want with your money. I paid you. Goodbye. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's
And
a
let me add
consequence
this
to that.
too, because sometimes a scary piece of hiring an employee is not understanding that employees, you don't automatically get benefits just because you're an employee. You don't, the law doesn't require employers, small businesses to pay benefits. You don't have to provide paid time off. You don't have to provide 401k or medical or anything. It makes your business more attractive if you have those things. But there is no law saying if you are an employer, you've got to give these particular benefits. You can have an employee and they can be part-time. They can work 2 hours a week or 10 hours a week and still be an employee. And so part of it is we want to empower folks with the knowledge, that kind of knowledge. Like
Sure.
It is way more important to protect your business by classifying employees properly, and we can deal with those other pieces that might not even be issues in terms of like the expense of benefits.
Hmm. Yeah, and I saw there was some chat that we're both in, and I think it was right around the summertime, and you were talking about summer interns
Hmm.
who paid versus non-paid. And I thought that was very interesting about, whether they're getting college credit versus
Yes.
not, because I know a lot of individuals that are in that stage, college stage, they want the experience. They want to just
Hmm.
use this company as a reference to get a new, better positions later. So they want to volunteer,
Right.
but
Yes.
that causes problems. Tell us about that.
It causes problem. And every year I go around like with the bullhorn saying, please don't. You've got to pay these people because I see it when it goes wrong. So
Yes.
and the law doesn't care, just like I was talking about folks wanting to be paid as contractors versus employees. Same thing when it comes to interns. The college student does want and need the experience. That is a great benefit for them. They will say, I will work for you for free.
Right.
The law doesn't care about that. The law will say these folks need to be paid. They're doing a job, they need to be paid at least minimum wage. The exception to that is if they're getting college credit, you don't have to pay them. And so we've at my firm, we've had students. We have one now, actually, a law student who is getting credit through her law school for working with us. Other than that, we're paying her at least minimum wage because when things go wrong, the Department of Labor will say this person was a worker, is an employee, not a volunteer. They are doing work that someone could be paid for, even though they're getting this great experience and all that, and they wanted to work for free. The Department of Labor is going to say this person is owed wages. Not only that, the IRS is owed employment taxes from you and all of the other taxes that come with having an employee.
Yeah. See, I don't play with the IRS.
Me
I'm like, oh,
neither.
Sam, tell me what I need to do because I don't want to deal with you. Wow, you have such good information that business owners need to take advantage of. And you're right. It's better to take care of these things before they become issues. But I know as a business owner, sometimes I guess you feel like you don't want to rock the boat.
Right,
And,
absolutely.
but at some point, that boat's going to be rocking if you don't get it right.
That's right. And if you do this long enough, and our business is not immune, we've got 14 employees at my firm, including 7 lawyers. All the same issues business owners, we are a small business too. We have people coming and going, and we have all sorts of issues that come up. One thing a piece of advice too, that I've had to learn over the years, it matters so much how you treat people on the way out. So much. Where some of these issues that we're talking about, folks are happy until they're not happy. You're one disgruntled employee away from a hard time. But if you treat them right on the way out, that sometimes keeps them from going to a plaintiff's employment lawyer who will say, oh, they will come, a person will go to a employment lawyer to say, I've been wrongfully terminated. That really doesn't exist here in Georgia. But
Right.
a good plaintiff's employment lawyer will say, well, how were you paid? Did you work overtime? Are there these other issues that small business owners normally get wrong? Do you have a case based on this other stuff? But if you treat folks right on the way out, like pay them whatever they should be paid, don't withhold because they didn't return your key. You're gonna have to get a lock change or uniform or whatever it is. Make sure you ease people out. Tell them if folks are not performing well, make sure you tell them along the way that you have issues with performance. People should know why they are being separated at the end of employment and pay them right. That will avoid a whole lot of problems.
Well, okay. So you bring up a good point. If Georgia is an at-will state,
Hmm.
why can't an employer just come in today and say, you know what, you have to go? So are you saying it's just kind of good practice to give, I guess, that feedback? And I know that may sound weird. Yes, always good practice to give someone feedback. But if it's an at-will state, how does that come up? Say if you decide,
Hmm.
I don't want you anymore.
Yep, that's an excellent question, and every day that comes up, that it's easier just to say we're at will. I could terminate your employment because I don't like that you have on blue. Legally, you could, but the issue is, should you do that? And if you
Mm-hmm.
do it that way, what can happen? What I have found in defending companies is normally employees will say, well, I don't know why I was let go, because employers will say, we just no longer need your services. And when they don't know why they were let go, they are free to make up in their minds all sorts of reasons why they could have
Ah,
been let go, even though they know that they were late 10 of the past 12 days. Like, they know
I
that,
see.
right?
I
But
see.
they will go to a plaintiff's employment lawyer to say, I don't know why this happened. And then once an employment lawyer gets into it and starts asking these questions and getting involved, you've got a problem. Versus if you had said all along, here's our attendance policy. You know you're supposed to be here at 9 a.m. You've been coming in at 10:30 for 4 of the 5 days. It's hard and unpleasant to have those difficult conversations, but that is absolutely in the category of protecting your business. You protect your business by having those ongoing coaching performance conversations, delivering that bad news even though you'd rather not. But at least people know that way. And sometimes it is, we just lost this big customer. That's why I'm letting you go. We don't have money to pay you. So I'm letting you go for that reason. Tell the people so they know that, so they won't make stuff up in their minds.
Oh, I get, yes, yes, because I can imagine it's the opposite of cheaper to keeper. It's like it's easier to just let them know instead of having them go someplace and then they make up these reasons like,
Yes.
oh, maybe it was because of discrimination. You
Yes.
discriminated against me. You did that.
Mm-hmm.
God, that is wow. I'm telling you, everybody needs you guys on retainer because this is really a slippery slope.
It
It
is a
can
slippery
be.
slope, and it's hard to figure out. And we're not taught these things. We're not taught these things in school about how to deal with these employment issues. You just kind of learn as you go, and sometimes it's costly to learn as you go.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
You don't know what you don't know. So that's ooh, you got me shivering here. Like, let me dot my I's and cross my T's over here. Make sure everything is on the up and up. Because I mean, nobody wants to deal with those type of
Oh
problems.
no, nobody has time for that.
No
It's
time.
such a
No
big
time for it.
distraction from your main business, and not only the financial cost, but the time drain and the emotional drain and the impact it has on your workplace. It's a lot to deal with.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And on a more personal note, before we have to check out of here, you are a recent grandma. Wait, is it 1 year?
He's
You're
15 months. I'm a Lovey. My name is Lovey.
Lovey. Lovey, lovey, lovey. First of all, you don't look like you would be a lovey,
Thank
meaning you look like juices and berries just flow from your skin all day.
Thank you.
Thank you. So how's it been being lovey?
It has been an interesting transition, I would say. Many people know I had my son when I was a teenager. I was 15 at the beginning of my sophomore year in high school. And so we've been together a long time. He's
Yeah.
been right on my hip a long time, through high school, through college, through law school. And so we grew up together in a lot of ways. In all ways, we kind of grew up together. And so to see my son now be a dad, that's it is something so very special.
Mhm.
And the baby, his my son is Jamal, the baby is Jamal, but Jamal, my son, is the baby's favorite person in the whole wide world, and so that is very touching to see as well. I Fortunately, he's here, and I get the baby every weekend and spend some time with him. But we could have a great, fantastic day of being outside, laughing, joking. But as soon as his daddy comes around, it's like
Oh,
he never knew me. Like, who
of
are you, lady?
course.
And don't touch me.
Yes.
Stranger, stranger. So,
Yes. I get that. I used to feel so bad because my son, well, and my daughter were both like that with
no.
other people. Like they clung to me so much. And then people would come in and be like, "Mm, mm." And it's hard, as an adult. Of course, you're thinking, oh, this is just a little kid, but it stabs you a little bit. It stabs you. It stabs you. So you were 15 when
Mhm.
you had Jamal. Walk us through. I mean, and look at you now. I know a lot of times there's these stigmas that are out there about teen moms. How tell us about that? How did you overcome that stigma? And look at you now. What advice would you give someone who may find themselves in your same situation?
Well, it's interesting because now that I look back on that 30 years later, I'm 47. So, yeah, a little more than 30 years later, I look back and I see these other 15-year-olds like, that was me. How could I don't
Yeah.
it's unimaginable. But I'll tell you, there's some strength and ignorance is bliss in a young person, right? I didn't know enough to be afraid of how I would make it out here. I didn't know enough to stop and question, like, maybe I shouldn't move across the country with my son. It's just me and my son to go to school, somebody's college, then somebody's law school. How am I going to do this? That wasn't even on my radar. It was like, okay, well, I've got a kid, or like whatever else it is that you are born with, we're going to go do this. It didn't stop me. And so, and a lot of it was just, I didn't know any better. I was fearless in a way.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the statistics, I didn't know anything about the statistics. And maybe that's them, but that won't be me.
Yeah.
I'm smart. I wanted to be a lawyer. We're about to go be a lawyer. We're about to go to law school. We're about to do the things. So I just didn't let fear stop me. I didn't even think about being afraid. It was,
Yeah.
okay, here's my situation. How am I going to get this done? We were very, very fortunate to find family student housing, both in undergrad at the University of Illinois and then at law school at the University of Michigan. We stayed in a community of families going to school, and we were able
Awesome.
to identify other single parents. Everybody was older than me, but I learned how to be a mama in those situations because my kid did what their kids did. So Jamal did soccer and saxophone and all the things that more affluent kids did, and with mamas who were older who had done it before. And so
Yeah.
we benefited from that community. I benefited from that community. When I was in law school, I never paid for a babysitter and always had three boys with me. We were very much a village, and that made the difference for me too. Just, and I, again, talk about God. Like, I didn't know anything about student family housing, or that it was a thing, that I needed it, that we would benefit from it. But that was part of the key to getting us through successfully.
Wow.
Mhm.
Jamala, I hate that our time has come to an end. This has been one of my favorite interviews, I must say.
Oh goodness.
Um,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you. I really do. And I appreciate your time and I appreciate the wisdom that you've provided. And I want everyone who's listening, who's watching, to know that, okay, your faith, I mean, you profess your faith, you've had a successful business, you've overcome a lot in your lifetime, and we have so much more to go.
We do.
God
We
willing, my
do.
grandma said, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Right.
And it's such an inspiration to hear of your story. So everyone,
Thank
small
you.
business owners or executives, if you're looking to make a transition and you need this smooth things over, Jamala is here for you. So Jamala, tell our listeners and viewers how they can find you.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm Googleable, Jamala McFadden, and all of my firm information will come up. But we're with the Employment Law Solution. So www.theemploymentlawsolution.com. That's the name of our website. So you can absolutely find us there and connect with us there. All of our contact information is on our website. You can see our lawyer profiles, not only the lawyers, but everyone on our team, to see who it is we have on our team and who it is you'd be dealing with.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in for yet another episode. And we will see you next time. And thank you again, Jamala, for your
Thank
time.
you, Lashonda, for inviting me. I feel like we were having drinks, just talking, girlfriends catching up. And
There you
so I
go.
love this vibe. It's
Oh,
perfect.
well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye bye.
You've been tuning into Life Lessons in Law with Lashonda. In each episode, we have authentic and entertaining conversations about the impact of the law on women. I hope you'll join me each time. You can find this show on my website at www.thecounselfirm.com and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. We appreciate your positive comments and reviews. And don't forget to share this show with others. I've been your host, Lashonda Counsel Rogers.